Long before Europe was ruled by disciplined standing armies, kingdoms depended on men willing to fight for a different master, the highest bidder. Across the fractured lands of the Middle Ages, where borders shifted with every campaign and castles dominated the countryside, war became a constant companion. Every conflict demanded experienced fighters, yet few kings could afford to maintain permanent armies throughout the year. Into this dangerous world stepped the medieval mercenary. Neither noble knight nor common peasant, these professional warriors transformed warfare by selling their skill, courage, and loyalty for gold. Their rise would reshape Europe for centuries.
The roots of mercenary service stretched back to the collapse of the Roman Empire, when local lords struggled to defend scattered territories against ambitious neighbours and foreign invaders. Feudal obligations supplied warriors only for limited campaigns, leaving rulers desperately short of experienced soldiers once harvests demanded farmers return home. Gold solved this problem. Veterans, hardened by years of warfare, discovered their swords were valuable commodities, and ambitious kings quickly realized that paid professionals could often outperform reluctant feudal levies. A new military profession had quietly been born.
Unlike knights bound by feudal oaths, mercenaries pledged themselves through carefully negotiated contracts. Payment could include silver coins, horses, land, or a guaranteed share of captured treasure. Some served faithfully for years, earning reputations as disciplined professionals. Others changed employers whenever richer offers appeared. To many nobles, such men represented dangerous opportunists. Yet on the battlefield, their experience often meant the difference between victory and ruin. In an age where kingdoms rose and fell through war, loyalty itself became another commodity with a price.
Life as a medieval mercenary offered neither comfort nor certainty. Campaigns could last months or even years, forcing soldiers to march across mountains, forests, and muddy roads through every season. Hunger was a familiar companion. Disease spread rapidly through crowded camps, and every battle carried the possibility of sudden death. Yet for many poor farmers, younger sons without inheritance, or disgraced knights seeking redemption, the promise of regular pay and battlefield glory outweighed the dangers. War became both occupation and identity.
Survival demanded relentless training. Mercenaries mastered swords, polearms, bows, crossbows, and devastating two-handed weapons capable of shattering shields and armour. Veterans drilled endlessly, learning to hold disciplined formations under crushing cavalry charges, while adapting to unfamiliar terrain and unpredictable commanders. Experience became their greatest weapon. Every scar told a story of another battle survived, another employer served, another lesson learned.
Unlike many feudal levies, these warriors refined their craft through constant combat, becoming some of the most feared soldiers in medieval Europe.
As medieval warfare evolved, the finest mercenaries became recognizable not only by their scars, but by their equipment. A seasoned veteran invested much of his earnings in superior armor, stronger horses, and finely crafted weapons.
Chainmail gradually gave way to expertly forged plate armor, while long pikes, heavy crossbows, and massive two-handed swords turned disciplined formations into deadly machines.
campaigns. Every piece of equipment represented years of hard-earned wages, and every improvement increased a soldier's chances of surviving the next brutal campaign. On the battlefield, preparation often determined who lived long enough to spend their reward.
By the 14th century, mercenary warfare had grown into a thriving profession. Across Italy, Germany, France and beyond, entire companies emerged under experienced captains whose reputations attracted kings and princes alike.
Among the most famous were the Italian condottieri, commanders who negotiated detailed military contracts known as condotte. Their disciplined companies marched beneath distinctive banners, offering cavalry, infantry, engineers and archers as complete military forces.
Success brought immense wealth, while failure could destroy an entire company in a single disastrous campaign.
Mercenary companies rarely remained in one kingdom for long. One year they might defend a French castle against invasion. The next, they could be marching across the Alps to fight in the rival city-states of northern Italy.
Their journeys crossed frozen mountain passes, dense forests, swollen rivers, and fertile plains scarred by decades of conflict. Every campaign introduced unfamiliar allies, dangerous enemies, and new opportunities for fortune. For these professional soldiers, Europe itself became both their battlefield and their workplace.
Yet the greatest danger did not always come from enemy swords. Mercenary loyalty depended upon contracts being honoured and wages paid. When treasuries emptied or promises were broken, entire companies could abandon their employers or even join the opposing side.
No challenge tested mercenaries more than the medieval siege. Castles, with their towering walls and deep moats, demanded patience as much as courage. Engineers constructed towering siege engines, while miners tunneled beneath stone foundations, hoping to collapse mighty fortifications from below. Archers and crossbowmen exchanged deadly volleys across battlements as defenders hurled stones, boiling water, and burning pitch upon attackers. Weeks often stretched into months before a single breach decided the fate of everyone trapped behind the walls.
Yet the greatest danger did not always come from enemy swords. Mercenary loyalty depended upon contracts being honoured and wages paid. When treasuries emptied or promises were broken, entire companies could abandon their employers or even join the opposing side.
Some captains remained fiercely loyal, protecting kingdoms through decades of warfare. Others became infamous for betrayal, selling their experience to whichever ruler offered the richest reward. In medieval Europe, trust was often as fragile as the parchment upon which military agreements had been written.
War in the Middle Ages was rarely clean, and for mercenaries it was often brutally personal. Battles were fought at close quarters, where steel met bone, and survival depended on strength, speed, and instinct. Shields splintered under heavy blows, horses screamed as they fell, and the wounded were often left behind in the chaos of
Mercenaries, hardened by years of constant campaigning, became accustomed to violence that shocked even seasoned knights. To them, the battlefield was not a place of honour. It was a place of survival, where hesitation meant death and mercy was a rare luxury.
At the centre of many mercenary companies stood their captains, men who were part strategist,
part negotiator and part warlord. These leaders commanded loyalty not through noble birth, but through reputation and success.
A skilled captain could gather hundreds or even thousands of fighters under his banner, forging a disciplined force from desperate individuals and hardened veterans. Their leadership was tested not only in battle, but also in diplomacy, as they bargained with kings, bishops, and city councils for contracts that determined the fate of entire regions.
Wealth defined the mercenary world as much as warfare. Victories brought spoils: gold, silver, weapons, armor, livestock, and sometimes entire cities forced to pay ransom. For many soldiers, loot was the true reward of battle, often exceeding their formal wages.
Reputation spread quickly. A company known for discipline and effectiveness attracted richer contracts, while those infamous for disorder found themselves abandoned. Yet this pursuit of wealth also created tension, as competition over spoils could turn allies into enemies in an instant.
The Crusades brought mercenaries into one of the most brutal and politically complex conflicts of the medieval world. Fighting across foreign lands, from Europe to the Holy Land, they served both Christian kings and rival factions within the same campaigns.
Their skills in siege warfare, cavalry charges, and battlefield organization made them invaluable. Yet their loyalty remained tied to payment rather than ideology. In the chaos of religious war, mercenaries became both essential allies and unpredictable threats to those who hired them.
In the fractured politics of medieval Europe, mercenaries often became decisive forces in civil wars and power struggles. Kings relied on them to suppress rebellions, while rival claimants hired them to overthrow rulers. Entire kingdoms could be reshaped by the presence of a single powerful company, shifting the balance of war. Their influence extended beyond battlefields into courts and councils, where their reputation for strength made them both feared and respected by those who depended on their swords.
By the late Middle Ages, the foundations of warfare began to shift. Kings and emerging nation-states realized that dependence on mercenary companies was both powerful and dangerous. To secure greater control, rulers started building professional standing armies, loyal directly to the crown.
Taxes were restructured to fund permanent troops, trained year-round and disciplined under centralized command. This new system slowly reduced the influence of independent mercenary captains, who once dictated the outcomes of wars through their shifting loyalties and contracts.
At the same time, a new force began to reshape the battlefield: gunpowder. Cannons and early firearms slowly made traditional fortifications and armoured warriors less dominant. Castles that once withstood months of siege could now be shattered by sustained bombardment. Mercenaries who specialized in sword, spear, and crossbow warfare found themselves adapting or becoming obsolete. Warfare was entering a new era where technology, not just skill and courage, would determine victory. As centralized armies grew stronger, the traditional mercenary companies began to fade. Some were absorbed into royal forces, while others disbanded entirely as contracts became harder to secure. The age of independent war bands roaming Europe in search of employment was coming to an end.
Kings no longer needed to rely on unpredictable alliances when they could maintain loyal, permanent forces under their direct command. The battlefield was becoming more organized, but also more impersonal. Despite their decline, mercenaries left behind a legacy surrounded by both myth and reality. Chroniclers often portrayed them as ruthless opportunists driven only by greed, while others acknowledged their professionalism and crucial role in shaping medieval warfare.
The truth lay somewhere in between. They were products of a violent age, men who survived not through noble birth or divine right, but through skill, adaptability, and an unflinching understanding of war as a profession.
In the end, medieval mercenaries helped define the evolution of European warfare. They filled the gap between feudal levies and modern professional armies, shaping battles, kingdoms, and even empires through their skill and mobility. Though their age eventually faded with the rise of gunpowder and centralized states, their influence never disappeared. The modern concept of professional soldiers owes much to these wandering warriors who fought not for land or title, but for pay, and for survival in one of history's most turbulent eras.
If you enjoyed this journey through history, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more fascinating stories from the past. Your support helps us create more high-quality historical documentaries, uncover forgotten events, and bring incredible moments in history to life. Let us know in the comments what historical topic you'd like to see next, and we'll see you in the next video.